Dune! Part 2. First thoughts and impressions. I've seen the film twice now. At some point in the next coming weeks or month or so, I want to do a deep dive on every shot, every sound, every theme, the pacing, the cinematography, the ideas, the book, the vision, the craft. But for the time being, I've seen the movie twice. I think I have a general grasp on my basic thoughts and ideas that will shift a bit, but not a lot. So I'm gonna try to keep this brief as much as I possibly can. Let's get into it. Readers of the book will find an overwhelming sense of familiarity as we open with this monologue by Princess Irulan, played by Florence Pugh. I think she did a great job. I think she does hold this feeling of wealth and privilege and highborn, but she's got a little bit of an edge to her, you know. She's a little bit punk rock, she's a little bit independent and alternative to the mainstream. She's got this Benny Gesserit thing going on. She's trained with them and she's very much familiar with the workings of the society and all these feuding houses and the economics. Her father, Emperor Shaddam IV, played by Christopher Walken, very much feels like he's not part of this game. He is a very massive part of the game, obviously, but he's not hyper aware and he's not currently playing it at a high level. He seems like he's kind of sitting to the sides and not quite reading what's actually happening to the level of his daughter. So Florence Pugh, I thought she did an absolutely brilliant job as Princess Irulan. Once again, she's highborn and she's very sophisticated and privileged, but yet got that little bit of an edge. And Christopher Walken, I thought he did okay. He comes off as kind of naive and sitting on the sidelines and kind of frail and old. He didn't talk in some weird space lingo, he just talked as Christopher Walken. I can imagine a bunch of other actors doing something really cool and interesting and fascinating with this role where Christopher Walken kind of didn't. He was just kind of a Christopher Walken type character, saying lines. But I mean, it's Christopher Walken and I don't have any massive problem with his portrayal or performance at all. It served the narrative for what it needed to be. So the first thing that absolutely struck me when I first watched this movie, I should point out, by the way, I watched this as a double feature for the first time ever seeing Part 2, which is incredible. Dune Part 1 I've seen 15 fucking times. I loved that movie to death. But watching it home on your fucking massive television and your awesome sound system, as big and awesome as they are, is nothing compared to the cinemas. Dune Part 1 in the cinemas, again, for me, was fucking brilliant. Just Hans Zimmer's score, vibrating every inch of that theater. It's a different experience in the theaters. So anyway, yeah, I went in and I watched 6 hours of Dune at Gold Class. For anyone outside Australia, I don't know if you know what that is. It's more of a boutique kind of cinema. It's smaller, but you got bigger, better chairs. You got the Dolby Atmos, I believe. It's all digital, it's not actual film, but it's a higher resolution and a better sound system. So it's the more boutique version of your dingy, old, shitty cinemas. And yeah, what struck me while watching Part 2 for the first time was just the absolute fucking beauty. That initial ambush with the Harkonnens attacking Paul and Jessica in the frame, and I mean, it was gorgeous. Every third shot, I was just imagining it hanging in some fucking art gallery as some massive oil painting, and the contrast between the deep black and that dark orange that just popped out, but yet it was all so dark and dingy. And there's a shot of these Harkonnens levitating off the side of a mountain, and it was just, it's beautiful, you know. I think mistakenly a lot of people think of cinema as entertainment or escapism, or even at a lower level, distraction. but at its very highest echelon, it's an art form, and it's one of the most brilliant and immersive and moving and captivating art forms there is. And not just the lens and not just the pictures, but the sound design and the music and the pacing and the editing and the tension and the suspense. And this really showcases the art of cinematography, of framing, of editing, of suspense, the sound design. The sound design is immaculate, and it's all mixed in with Hans Zimmer's just incredibly hectic and sometimes beautiful and like a love story. Like the love motifs from Zimmer in this film are beautiful, but like I'm skipping ahead here, but like, you know, those hectic moments with the score. I'm waffling. My point is, film is an art form, and this is a fucking example of art at some of the highest echelons in cinematic history. Maybe I shouldn't go that far. I'm getting a little bit too excited. I apologize. I'll try to ramp it down. The movie was good. Maybe it's really good, okay? Maybe it's not in the higher echelon of cinematic history, but you know, it's up there with at least like Return of the King and modern classics. It's not a Taxi Driver or a Lawrence of Arabia, but it doesn't need to meet that bar. And maybe it even does. It's really good. Dune came out in the middle of the psychedelic revolution in the 60s, and being a psychonaut myself and loving this book for near a decade now, I had all these crazy visions of the Water of Life scene with Jessica and these intense psychedelic moments, and this film does a great job, I think, at least for someone who knows what's going on and knows the narrative, did a great job of showing Jessica's initiation and the danger into this Reverend Mother role with the Fremen. It was way more understated than I would have gone, but I mean, I think I would have taken it way too far. It would have been crazy and dumb and insane. But anyway, yeah, the Water of Life scene, it was great. And here we get to see Alia in the womb, and I loved all these shots of the fetus and the monologue over the top of it, and you see the spice like come into the womb and that big blue swirl, and it did a great job of communicating to non-book readers, I think, of what was going on. In the book we get a lot more in-depth explanation of like the Bene Gesserit training against poison. Jessica like consciously changes molecules in this poison to make it bearable, and then it just becomes psychoactive, and in the book it's great. All the Fremen, after Jessica's changed the molecule from poison to psychedelic, they all get on it and they're all having this spice orgy and having sex, and there's music and incense and drugs, and it's amazing. They didn't do any of that, but I loved the scene nonetheless. They really hammered home the danger of it and the risks towards Jessica and Alia. And I think I liked all the Alia scenes in the womb. We should talk about Alia. Spoilers for the book, if anyone cares about that. We should talk about time as well. So in the book, basically somewhere between Paul riding the worm and Jessica taking the Water of Life, there's a 2-year time jump here. Bunch of stuff happens. It's a thick, rich, dense book. Paul inherits Jameis's wife and Jameis's child, and Jameis's wife's child from a different marriage. He killed her, whatever. He inherits a bunch of kids. Chaney and Paul have a kid, and Alia is born in this time, and she's born with all the genetic memories of centuries or thousands of years of Reverend Mothers, all their pain, all their knowledge, all their love, all their lust. So we have this little child who is not just spoken as an adult, but as like a hyper-intelligent alien with the genetic memories of centuries and centuries worth of these witches, which is great in the book. Just everyone's freaked out by this quote-unquote abomination, and she can't interact with the children because she freaks them the fuck out. She can't interact with the adults, so everyone's scared of her. And we don't get any of that here. Rushing forward to the third act, Alia is actually the one who kills the Baron. It's great. She has the gom jabber. She jabs him in the neck. And in the book, the Baron didn't really fly around on these like weight suspensors. It more just like glided him along and lifted all his weight. Like his weight was like held up in like weird bunches, and he just kind of tiptoed around. So she stabs him with the gom jabber, and he kind of slumps while still being held together by all these fucking gravity suspensors, and slumps around, and it's really gross and weird. We didn't get any of that here. Paul kills the Baron, and it is satisfying, obviously, with the first half and what the Baron did to Paul's family and all of that. So all of that still works perfectly. I think it's weird and incredibly hard, and we see this with David Lynch's film, where if you have a 2-year-old speaking as an adult in a book, it works, and you can imagine that in your brain, but when it's on camera, it's not the same as a book. It's a completely different medium, and it doesn't really work. It looks silly, it looks odd, it looks comical and humorous, and I just don't think it would have worked at all. In saying that, it's hard for me to justify Aaliyah's absence here, because it would have been insane and crazy and weird, but it might have undercut the tension, the suspense, and became comical. So I think Denny knows what he's doing, and I trust his vision. At the same time, it would have been interesting and fascinating to see this little 2-year-old talking as an adult and murdering the Baron. But there you go. If you want that version, it still exists. It's in the book right here, and you can go and read it, and it's amazing and crazy and insane. Some other changes from the book to the movie is Jessica seems to become more of an antagonist here in this film. Once she takes the water of life, she's just on this mission to convert all these Fremen to the cause, whether Paul actually is the Lisan al-Gaib, or whether that it is just some like false imprinted Bene Gesserit manipulation, which it is. He's not really a god, he's not really a messiah, and the overarching themes are no leaders can ever be trusted, they'll all eventually be corrupted and turn evil. So yeah, Jessica kind of takes a harder edge in this film here than she does in the book, and she seems to like go against Paul at times and just go against any sense of like humanity, and all she really wants is to convert the Fremen to the cause of the Lisan al-Gaib, to Muad'Dib, and just to carry out this act, not necessarily the jihad or the crusade, but she definitely wants Paul to overthrow the Harkonnens and overtake Arrakis and the spice production. At the very minimum, I don't believe she has Paul's deeper visions of the jihad. Another character who has kind of a different angle in this film other than the book is Chani. In the book, she's very supportive of Paul from the beginning. There's no real debate amongst the Fremen whether he is Mahdi. He kind of comes in and he does a little and he beats Jameis, and they're all kind of fundamentalists, and they're all kind of happy and willing to go along with it. Whereas in the movie, there's a lot more division amongst like the northern Fremen and the southern Fremen, and there's like a line drawn between the religious zealots and Fremen who believe in a society run by actual Fremen and not Offworlders. And I actually think that's a great change, and that creates more drama and more tension and more interest and more depth in this Messiah story here. So yeah, Chani takes more of an opposition to this fundamentalist regime. I mean, of course she does. Paul is gifted like 92 nukes and then grabs all the Fremen, and with the Fremen is able to overthrow House Harkonnen, then immediately is just like, hey, all the houses, let's send them to hell. He doesn't say that, he says paradise. And she's in opposition to that, obviously, and then there's the whole love triangle with Irulan. Paul doesn't explain himself to Chani, he just kind of, he's like, hey, you should get married to me. So that's creating more of a character drama between them, and we'll see more of that unfold if Dune Messiah is ever made, which I think it's going to be now, because this film looks like it's doing really well at the box office. It made $80 million in the first weekend, and I believe it will make a lot more money. It's fucking brilliant, and word of mouth seems to be spreading, and it seems to be spreading in consciousness further than just hardcore, high concept sci-fi fans into a more generalized public, which is crazy because it's an insane and crazy story. But I guess Denny was somehow able to condense it and simplify it and still keep it at its core elements, and still with enough detail and depth and world building to adhere to the book readers and their love of the depth of the novel, and still be able to not alienate a general audience. So yeah, I think Jessica being more of an antagonist is interesting. I like the division between the Fremen and the love triangle and more drama between Paul and Chani and Irulan makes sense from a narrative perspective. Touched on this earlier but got distracted and never came around to it. So yeah, the idea of time. There's a 2-year time jump in the book, and here this all seems to carry out within 9 months. And upon my first viewing, I didn't really like that and didn't really understand that, but I'd come, or at least I was aware of it going into my second viewing, and I think it works. It works as a film. You know, it goes against the book, and I think what the book does is better, but as a movie, when you watch part 1 and part 2, I think the pacing and the flow works perfectly. And the fact that Mahdi was able to do this mass like revolt and convert all these Fremen within the 9 months, I think that's believable and makes sense. I think T.E. Lawrence, i.e. Lawrence of Arabia, went to Arabia and kind of worked his way into the culture and convinced all the leaders of this Arabic nation that what they should do, and then they took Aqaba. I think this is, I don't know whether this is in the movie or this is all real, but anyway, my point is that Lawrence did a lot in real life in 9 months, which is what the initial book was based off and what partially this movie is based off. So I think the time frame here is fine, and I think it works. We don't get Irulan because of it. Chani and Paul have a child that dies in one of the battles. But I think that's fine. It would be interesting to see how it would work with the time jump, but I think without the time jump, it still absolutely works. Might have been better with the time jump, but it's fine. It makes sense, and I can still believe that Mahdi did all these things in this 9 month time span. I say 9 months because Jessica didn't give birth to Irulan from beginning to end of film. The scene where Paul rode the sandworm was fucking crazy. I mean, just from all these great set pieces in Jordan filmed with like natural light on actual sand dunes, cut to studio where they practically built part of the sandworm, and then all the layers of actual dirt and sand that were just blown on Timothée Chalamet, to the digital layering of all the dust. And then Zimmer's score, I mean, it's just fucking mind-melting in this moment. As soon as he like lifts his leg and it's just the, but it's like a melody, it's like mind-melting, but it's this weird, interesting, fascinating melody that's melodic and playing out. And the sound design of the worm like erupting and crashing through the dune, it's just, I mean, it's amazing. There are so many brilliant, huge, massive action set pieces in this film, and it just feels so believable and real, and all the machines and the scale of these machines, the sand crawlers and the explosions look so realistic and feel so realistic. And I like the way that Denny just ramped up this film into like a kind of a, he's explained it as a war movie. It kind of has a sense of a war movie in a lot of ways, I guess, but the book, it doesn't really describe the action set pieces in detail, and it kind of describes the world and the characters and the economics and the horticulture and all that. And it kind of explains the action set pieces and then moves on, but it doesn't put you in the middle of the battle and explain each individual battle. And I think it was a fucking amazing decision. It's a different medium, right? To show these crazy, insane, amazing action set pieces that were all brilliant. And I'm sure that's part of the reason that non-book readers and people who get freaked out by how weird this is it's resonating with them more. Holy fucking shit. I cannot overemphasize how amazing Fade Ralph was in this film. Austin Butler did a fucking brilliant job. I loved him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Tarantino is my favorite director of all time. I thought he did great in Elvis, although I did not really enjoy the pacing and the tone of Elvis. I thought it should have been a more grounded, walk the line type of biopic. But anyway, Austin Butler, holy shit, man, he is a brilliant villain, a captivating villain, and whenever he's on screen you're just completely immersed and drawn in by his performance and his character and his subtle nuances, licking the knife and slitting the guy's throat, and the way he holds himself and his shoulders and his impression of his beloved Baron, his fucking uncle. It was just amazing. And then that gladiatorial sequence was brilliant. It had some diversions from the book, but it was very, very close to the book. Jasper in our little Dune talk said, I wonder if that's like an environmental thing, how it's black and white. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, Jasper? Danny's just doing a thing where it's going to be in black and white. But no, yeah, I don't know what's happening, some type of an eclipse or something, and they filmed this all in ultraviolet cameras. Denny said it was high risk because he wanted to film it in camera in ultraviolet, which makes all the colors react in a different way and the skin look more what's the word I'm looking for here? Transparent, and just make it all look weird. But once you film it, like, that's it. You can't go back and colorize it. I'm gonna research this a lot more in the technical aspects of what they actually did for my deep dive, because I find it infinitely fascinating. But yeah, Fade Ralph, Austin Butler, that black and white gladiatorial sequence, every scene that Fade Ralph was in, holy shit, fucking amazing, fucking brilliant. I loved him as Paul's other side, Paul's antagonist. He worked perfectly. It was high tension, high suspense. He showed his prowess. The battle at the end worked between them, and every moment with him I was just completely captivated. Thutha Howard is another obvious massive change from book to movie here. In the book, after House Atreides is overthrown and Pyre Debris is murdered by the Duke's poison tooth, the Baron, who needs a Mentat, and they don't really go into the Mentat in the movies, but basically there was this Butlerian jihad where AIs went crazy and there was a big war against the AIs, so computers have been outlawed in the Dune universe. So these Mentats were like bred, and they're basically human computers which can computate like computer-esque amounts of data, but they're humans, and they train them as assassins and all this crazy stuff. And the Baron needs a Mentat. He can't exist and function as the overseer of Arrakis without a Mentat. So being that Pietus just died and he's just like captured Thutha Howard, he brings him onto Harkonnen team, which is really interesting because obviously Thutha Howard still has alliances to House Atreides. He'd served like 3 generations of House Atreides. So Denny cut all that. I think he filmed a bunch of it with, I don't know the actor's name, we'll dig him up here, Steven something. K. Amos, no, he's a comedian. And because of pacing and rhythm and all that, Thutha was cut out. To be honest, my first viewing, I was so immersed, I did not even realize that Thutha Howard was not here. And yeah, I guess I kind of miss him, but I understand pacing. And you know, this is a 2-hour and 45-minute movie already, so to add more onto that, more into that, you could definitely lose an audience. And this is already kind of bordering on the line of not being too long. I shouldn't say that at all. I would have watched another hour of it. But I think it actually has great pacing and rolls along brilliantly. Far better than the first one. I love the first one. I love fucking slow movies. I love movies from the 60s that just amble along. So I'm not one to complain about a slow movie. I love a slow movie. I didn't think the first movie was a slow movie. People are fucking saying that. And this movie is definitely not a slow movie. This movie is high pace, high action, great pacing, great tension, great suspense. And yeah, it's filmmaking. Unfortunately, some brilliant moments have to be left on the editing room floor to make a good cut, a good edit, a good pace. There's a great scene where we see how the water of life is extracted from these juvenile sandworms. The actress who played the worm handler, for lack of a better term, was amazing. I feel like she has a background in some kind of martial art. The way she was walking and her stance and movements was all very captivating to me, and it reeked of some type of a martial art. And yeah, then they get the worm and she drowns it, and its mouth opens up and they extract the thing. And I've read this in the book 4 or 5 times. But, I mean, it was just crazy and weird and insane in the movie, and I absolutely loved it. So anyway, Paul takes the water of life and he goes unconscious. I think in the book he's unconscious for like months and months. In the film it's far less, but that's fine. We're condensing time. Films always do that. He wakes up and yeah, we really start to see, if you know where the story goes, if you know what happens in Dune Messiah, spoilers for Dune Messiah, we really start to see Paul's transformation here. He was unsure and unwilling, and he's trying to avoid this looming jihad, this global jihad, this destruction of millions. But once he takes the water of life, he seems to snap out of that hero stance and becomes an anti-hero. This isn't an archetypical hero's journey. It's the deconstruction of the idea of a hero, of a leader, of power, of government, of politics. And we really start to seal that here as soon as he takes the water of life. He's just like, I'm the Lisan al-Gaib, I'm Mahdi. Oh my God, my light is dying over there. My dogs are barking. This review's insane. I'm trying to keep it under wraps here. We start to see the beginning of Dune Messiah. We start to see Paul become not this good guy, not this child whose family has been massacred, but this person who carries out a global fucking jihad, yo. And yeah, I love it. I love the fact that our lead character isn't a Luke Skywalker-esque character. He's the anti-Luke Skywalker-esque character. So the last thing I really want to talk about, I tried to keep this brief. This was as brief as I could possibly keep it. We will get there. I'll do like a 40-minute breakdown of this shot, of that shot, of this sound, of how ultraviolet cameras work, and all that jazz, of the acting, of the script, of the differences book, the thing. But I just wanted to really get out some general thoughts here. And the last thing to really mention here is the fucking battle at Arrakeen, which is fucking amazing. I think Jasper, my mate, I tried to get Jasper and Steve to do a 3-way discussion for this, by the way, but we're adults, we all have full-time jobs. Jasper has 2 kids, I have 2 kids, Steven doesn't have any kids, but it just didn't really work, and they didn't really have the time to do it, and we would have had to do it weeks later, which is too fucking late to be putting off talking about this amazing movie. But anyway, I'm waffling. What was my point? The Battle of Arrakeen was fucking incredible. Jasper, that's right, Jasper said that this movie had a better explosion than Oppenheimer. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but you know, he's kinda right in a way. When those sandworms bust through that wall of dust, the battle, Paul walking in covered in blood and dirt like an actual real life insane badass, the knife fight between Paul and Fade, everything with the Emperor. It was just, it's an amazing movie. And I know I'm probably stroking its dick a little bit too much right now, but I promise you in the deep dive that I will have some critiques or problems or issues with it. Yeah, but I mean, overall, fundamentally as a work, as a movie, not only does it work as a sequel to Dune Part 1, I think it also works as a telling of Dune, you know? There's a lot more in Dune. You could have had like 2 10-hour seasons telling Dune, just the first book. And I think that's the best way to tell it, in a Game of Thrones style. Oh my gosh, that my light goes again. In a Game of Thrones style, like 10-hour, season by season drama. But then it wouldn't have been as high scale and high budget and intense and beautiful. So maybe we got the better version here with these films, which worked perfectly and beautifully as films, and I believe were a good adaptation of Dune, not a perfect adaptation of Dune. Battle of Arrakeen was amazing. Alright, I should probably head off before the dogs start barking more or one of my other lights dies. I could go on and on about Dune. I'm going to do a review of the third part of the mini-series coming up. I've already filmed a review of Blade Runner 2049 with young Steven, which I'll be releasing. I'm going to do my deep dive of Dune, breaking down every single moment that captivated me. And I'm going to do a big, massive review with both Steven and Jasper of Lawrence of Arabia, where I'm sure that Dune will come up. So please, if you enjoyed this, stay tuned. Gonna be some more Dune content coming your way. I'm so pleased and so happy that not only did this live up to expectations of Dune Part 1, but it fucking surpassed them. It blew that brilliant movie out of the water, and it was better than I thought it was gonna be, and I thought it was gonna be really fucking good. Alright. Thank you for watching. Good night. Like, subscribe, comment, sting that bell. What the fuck ever, bruh. Peace. Long live the fighters. Belinda, if you're watching, thank you for your support.